Now we're recording the PS.
But we can edit this, right?
Yeah, this is all going to be cooked off, though. I'm just letting you know. All right, let's not touch the mouse. All right, you ready, steady? Okay. Here at Allen, we provide customer-centric, customizable logistics management, trade compliance, and tax services to a client base consisting of leading global corporations from a wide variety of industries. Today, though, we are here to discuss logistics. At Allen, we've spent many years honing our craft as one of the few genuine 4PL providers out there. We have great knowledge of what companies go through, and we have implemented solutions across all regions, modes, and industries. We have proved continually to be the best in class when it comes to adding value, carrier performance, and hard savings. The tools and processes we use to capture these savings and add this value will be unveiled today during this webinar. We will be presenting an installment in our Essentials webinar series, with the focus being on transportation spend and how to control and reduce it. Transportation costs not only make up most of a company's logistics spend, but they also significantly impact customer pricing and your bottom line. As such, companies that proactively work to control transportation costs can gain the competitive advantage. Today, we will be discussing what drives transportation costs and freight spend. We will also be touching on different tools and processes for controlling your transportation spend, which includes performance targets, planning and forecasting, TMS systems, premium approvals, and rates and rating engines. Finally, we will talk about some hidden costs, how they occur, and opportunities to mitigate them. An example of a hidden cost might be damaged freight, and the opportunity would be freight claims recovery. We will also get into specific transportation charges and the steps you can take to reduce them. Our main goal is to impart practical knowledge and tips to help you get control of your costs.
So let's begin with the basics. What drives transportation costs? Here, we are going to focus and break down all of the details that can add up to major costs. Let's talk about common scenarios that can increase total spend and your freight costs. Planning ahead is essential to making the most of your transportation budget. Poor preparation can lead to late ready dates. Being aware of your product within your supply chain and when it will be ready to move to your next destination can have a huge impact on incremental costs. For example, if you have a truck scheduled to arrive in the morning, but the cargo is not going to be ready until late afternoon, you may ultimately end up with unnecessary detention charges. These additional charges detract from your bottom line and can directly affect your margin. Additionally, if this consistently occurs, you may end up alienating your carrier base and viewed as an unreliable shipper. When this happens, you could be faced with sourcing higher cost carriers to cover your needs. Sourcing and vetting new carriers can be time consuming and also includes an element of risk. Another cost associated with limited planning would be the need to utilize premium or expedited shipments. Moving cargo using the least cost mode available is what all supply chain professionals work to secure. But through poor planning, your 2,500-pound shipment that would have cost you $350 to truck over 3 days, you now have to fly at over $4,000 to get it there the next day to meet your contracted date. These shipments do tend to happen occasionally, but having a structured plan in place helps mitigate or even avoid this situation. As a similar example, having short cycle pickup requests where you don't have time to seek out proper quotes can also lead to additional costs. Knowing when the materials are going to be ready and getting budgetary pricing in place can help avoid premium charges. When you have multiple shipments going to the same location, developing a consolidation strategy can save on your transportation costs. Looking at your supply chain and identifying these potential opportunities, you may be able to consolidate these smaller shipments throughout the week into one full truckload shipment. Being able to anticipate when the goods will be ready and assigning a timeline of when they need to be moved to your final destination will save you money in the long run.
Another factor that can drive up costs is having access to or only utilizing a limited amount of carriers. When you are only using one carrier for the majority of your shipments, they don't have to worry about giving competitive rates because there is no known competition. Also, if you are using one carrier for all of your shipments, when they aren't able to deliver on your schedule, you have nowhere else to turn. Establishing relationships with various carriers will help you understand what your spend should be and will make service providers aware that they need to keep their costs competitive. Decentralization is defined as the process of redistributing functions, people, or things away from a central location. A logistics supply chain model that is spread out and not standardized like a centralized model could ultimately lead to higher costs. You may be working in a decentralized model without even realizing it. When you have a company with fragmented strategies that try to achieve inconsistent goals, such as cost savings versus reliable service and on-time performance, saving opportunities can be lost along the way. We had a client who formerly had distribution branches all over the country. They assigned one person to be in charge of each branch and distribute the product. Because of the centralized model, each branch had their own strategy for their supply chain. One might be focused on least cost, while another may just call up the most convenient carrier each time. A decision was made to consolidate their operations to a central hub. Once this took place, they were able to have one person oversee an entire region where previously 3 or 4 people were managing those individual branch operations. Utilizing this method, they were able to focus on a unified strategy company-wide. Freight rates are the costs that are incurred when moving cargo from one point to another. Several factors come into play when determining proper rates. Rates begin to formulate with the cargo itself. Features such as dimensions, density, volume, and whether the cargo is stackable or turnable can make the rate more or less expensive. Another aspect to consider is how the object needs to be transported. Here, there are a lot of options, but either the customer may want it moved by a particular mode, or the cargo itself isn't allowed to be moved by certain modes based on its characteristics. Shipments can be moved by ground mode, meaning full truckloads, LTL, or by rail. For slower international moves, the shipment can go ocean mode, meaning by barge or vessel. Shipments moving by air transportation are considered the fastest and most costly. Each mode has their own special pricing structure and can change over time. The rates for these modes can be affected by outside factors such as capacity, peak season, and new regulations. For instance, there are new regulations in place that require trucks to have an electronic logging device installed by the end of 2017. Some carriers are not tech savvy, and because of this, may not be able to support these changes. These technological barriers are pushing seasoned drivers out of the market, and therefore could affect the number of available trucks in service, directly impacting capacity.
Having a deeper understanding of what is included in your rates will save money in the long run. How is the rate calculated? Is it by mile transported, per kilo of weight, by the volumetric weight, or is it just a flat fee? Here's a quick example. If you need to fly 2 different types of material, let's say a pallet of pillows and a pallet of metal forgings. Both pallets have the same dimensions of length, width, and height. The weight of the metal forgings is 3,500 pounds, and the weight of the pillows is 400 pounds. You will be charged by the actual weight for the metal forgings. But do you know if you'll be charged based on the actual weight of the pillows, or will you be charged by the dimensional weight? Dimensional weight is calculated by multiplying length by width by height, take that number, and divide by the applicable dim factor, which in this case is 166, and that will give you the dimensional weight. Let's go back to our original example about the pillows and find the dimensional weight for that shipment. If you have a pallet of pillows that is 45 by 45 by 45, we would take those and multiply them together. With that number, we would then divide by 166. The dimensional weight equals 549 pounds, making it greater than the actual weight of 400 pounds. Your rate will be calculated based on the dimensional weight rather than the actual weight. If you're shipping one pallet, then that's not really a big deal. What if you're forecasting 1,000 pallets over the next quarter, or 10,000 pallets over the next year? Does a 27% increase in your transportation budget make a big difference? Possibly. But knowing this information in advance can lead to better planning when determining the forecast for your transportation spend. Another type of rate, accessorial fees, are charges made for services beyond normal pickup and delivery. For instance, TONU stands for truck ordered not used, which is when you've requested a truck and then have to cancel it with limited notification prior to pickup. The carrier will charge a fee for the inconvenience. There is also additional fees for carrying hazardous material because of the dangers associated with it, as well as needing a driver who has an endorsement to haul hazmat. There are many more accessorial fees not listed here, but knowing they exist and understanding what they are can help you manage how they add up. Surcharges are added for fuel. Security surcharges are added for air freight, which is to cover airport security processes and procedures, and peak season surcharges are included during the months leading up to a holiday where manufacturers are all trying to get their products into the stores. Any inconvenience for the carrier could potentially mean an additional charge for your bottom line.
So now we would like to review our first pro tip. Pro tips usually involve a step or process that would be considered a best practice. These are actions we take for our clients to ensure that they are getting the best possible service. Our first pro tip is simple enough. Always stay current on industry news and world events. Sign up for bulletins and newsletters. Read the Journal of Commerce or other similar periodicals. Be on the lookout for information on port strikes, weather issues, and new regulations. These are just a few of the many issues that can make all the difference in pricing and performance. For instance, knowing when port strikes are happening is one of the first things you want to be aware of, as anyone who is moving ocean freight to the West Coast in 2015 understands. Here's what happened. In February 2015, 29 West Coast ports shut down for 4 days. This left ships from Asia to anchor for 10 days or more outside of the ports before they could unload their goods. These delays greatly impacted businesses and consumers. Next, there are always new regulations that drive cost and capacity. Some examples are the new Safety of Life at Sea regulations, also known as SOLAs, that require additional weighing of containers. This allows a validation of reported versus actual weight of each container that is positioned in a vessel and allows for correct weight distribution. Also, being aware of fuel prices and how they impact freight will help greatly when it comes to understanding your freight spend. And last but not least, knowing what is going on in other countries and regions will affect you. In spring of 2017, FedEx temporarily ceased operations into Venezuela due to the unrest there. Back in August 2017, Hurricane Harvey shut down all logistics operations in and out of Houston. Ocean, air, rail, ground, nothing was able to move. In the aftermath, you experienced capacity issues, rate hikes, and service issues. Knowing this information might help with making new arrangements for your cargo. These are just a few examples of how world events can shape your supply chain's performance. Moving on to discuss the specific steps companies can take to help reduce transportation spend. We're going to explain the importance of implementing procedures and systems, planning and forecasting, and contracting rates.
Zig Ziglar, a famous motivational speaker, once said, "If you aim at nothing, you will hit it every time." This same thought can apply to your company's supply chain. It's important to have a transportation savings goals. These will represent the total number of dollars saved as a result of your new transportation processes. So our first target, the use of least cost mode and carrier, is pretty easy to analyze if you have contracts in place. If you're not utilizing the least cost option, your router should provide a reason why a more expensive carrier was used. A reasonable explanation would be that the least cost carrier was not able to meet the needed delivery date. You will also want to maximize your on-time delivery and tracking visibility. Transportation metrics guide you on how to optimize your logistics and supply chain operations. Tracking these core metrics allows management to identify problem areas and fix them with data and experience. It also allows for comparison to other companies through industry benchmarking. Having a freight audit and claims targets will go a long way towards helping you reach your transportation savings goals. The performance targets listed on the screen may seem lofty, but we recommend creating stretch goals to shoot for to energize the people involved in the process and help put the focus on savings. Time for our next pro tip, one that goes hand in hand with performance target. Pro tip number 2 says to always monitor your volume, spend, and performance. The spend lets you know if your costs are going up and down, while performance lets you know if you're getting the correct service for the money you're paying your providers. Volume will help you define if you could potentially get better overall rates. We recommend you keep track of the following metrics. First, number of total shipments, also broken down by mode and region. Second, cost per mile, per kilo, and per shipment. And the third type of metric to keep track of is on-time pickup and deliveries, as well as total transit times. It usually works best if you can formulate this data on a monthly basis and compare the performance to previous years. Being able to set up and analyze your data will help you define goals.
Poor planning can be one of the main driving factors to increase transportation costs. By having a better plan and forecasting its transportation needs, a company can greatly increase its options. Having a shipping schedule in place for when cargo needs to move establishes need dates, which in turn gives you advance notice to schedule with a carrier and determines cargo ready dates. The best practice would be to create these plans months in advance, giving everyone involved pertinent information that can make the transportation of products go smoother. With having this added time, companies have better chances to select the least cost carrier and mode. Planning starts and ends with ready dates and need dates. Knowing when a shipment needs to be delivered and when it will be available for pickup are the most important factors in being selective with your transport modes and providers. With proper planning, you should be able to meet your customers' need dates shipping via a least cost mode, such as ocean or ground, and minimizing the use of air because the possibility of missing the need date. You also have the ability to hold shipments for consolidation with other cargo delivering to the same place. Planning will also help you avoid unnecessary demurrage and detention charges. Scheduling shipments to pick up when they are not ready to deliver or when a consignee can't take delivery will result in costly detention charges as the driver just sits waiting to either pick up or deliver. An example of this is scheduling a delivery on Saturday to meet a contractual date, but the consignee is not able to offload cargo over the weekend.
So how do you know you're getting the best possible pricing for your shipment? Do you have a strategy for analyzing your costs and total spend? Taking the time to focus on spend metrics will allow you develop contracts for future shipments. Having these contractual agreements in place with your carrier base helps protect your business as well as provides assurances to your service providers. Contracts save time by removing the hunt for an available truck. You can build relationships, meaning they will be more likely to have available trucks for your shipments. Being able to analyze your data and identify the total number of shipments, key lanes, and total spend allows you to be prepared when conducting negotiations. This information is crucial to receiving the best deal possible. Negotiations should be an obvious route to savings because your business needs the carriers as much as the carriers need your business. But please understand, they will be working to get the best pricing for their company, so you'll need to initiate these negotiations from your end. Negotiations can lead into lane creations for sites that have high volume shipments. For instance, if you have a supplier who is consistently shipping to a factory a few times a week, this would be the opportune time to set up a contracted lane for those shipments. The ultimate method to achieving the highest savings would be by joining a consortium who leverage logistics spend from multiple companies that allow for better negotiations with carriers to lower overall transportation costs. Strong data and volume can help secure your spot in a consortium.
Utilizing a transportation management system will provide additional benefits to every shipment. If you have a big company in different regions with complex supply chain, you're dealing with a lot of different people trying to achieve different goals. For example, fulfillment managers want shipments on time, whereas finance people want least cost. The biggest benefits you will gain from a TMS are visibility, efficiency, savings, and metrics. Let's dig deeper into each category for better understanding. A transportation management system will provide visibility to various items needed in a successful shipment. First and foremost, it'll provide information of the status of each shipment. Tracking the cargo will help with planning of when crews and additional equipment should arrive to a site to ensure easy offloading. Cost visibility is also a major benefit coming from a TMS. All accessorial charges and transportation fees will be broken down and available from the shipment information. This will help your finance team be mindful about the transportation budget. Visibility is also important because it will show the customer any delays and updated delivery information. The TMS will provide the most up-to-date data possible and can alert for any holdups in the transportation. Again, this will help prevent having to pay for a crew to wait on site for a shipment to arrive.
A TMS improves efficiency on many fronts, but one of the many highlights is that you will consistently utilize approved carriers. Only authorized transportation providers will be featured as your options, meaning you'll be unable to make the mistake of selecting an unapproved carrier. Savings are a huge benefit to utilizing a TMS. One way to gain these savings immediately is in using the least cost carrier for all shipments. By checking the system, it is clear company-wide how to identify the least cost carrier that should be used. Another savings opportunity is to consolidate shipments. When numerous people are entering shipments into a TMS, the router on the other side can think logically and consolidate shipments where possible. Suppliers may not know that someone else is attempting to ship an LTL shipment to the same site around the same time. An advantage of these consolidations means less transportation to site, leading to automatic savings. After transportation has occurred, a TMS can generate reports to show historical data. From here, it is simple to analyze the results and determine where opportunities for future savings can materialize. Reports can be pulled to highlight various measurements. For instance, on-time delivery metrics will show which carriers are performing and providing the best customer service, along with the other metrics we mentioned earlier. This data can lead to utilizing those high performers more, and by leveraging that higher volume, negotiating contracted lanes to receive the best deal possible. By examining transit times, you can also review your lead times within your supply chain. Understanding how long it will take to reach your customer will let you forecast the time when the cargo needs to be ready to be shipped, which in turn can lead to reduced expedited shipments to meet contractual need dates. Premium freight is when least cost carrier or mode isn't used, and therefore an opportunity to save some dollars is lost. This is a substantial cost control opportunity. By instituting controls for premium freight, companies have a great opportunity to keep down transportation costs. The use of premium freight is more prevalent than you think. Many times, the different parties involved in a shipment aren't always on the same page. The buyer may want a less costly mode, the shipper might just want the freight off their dock immediately, and fulfillment wants it delivered ASAP. You reconcile these different needs with the appropriate premium freight controls. These controls will ensure that the best processes are followed. The end result will be that the number of times you pay more than you should will be decreased. In the example shown, you can send this shipment via ocean in 19 days and pay $1,600, or you can send it by air in 2 days and pay $5,800. Upper management needs to decide whether the additional $4,200 in cost justifies the cargo delivering 17 days sooner. Since everyone involved in the supply chain has a different goal they want to achieve, leaving these decisions to anyone can mean that the higher amount is paid for the wrong reasons. With premium approvals, a threshold can be established so that when a quote comes in at a certain amount, only upper management will be granted permission to approve those costs.
A high-quality TMS will have the technology in place to be accessible anywhere. If you think about it, the people who could use the most up-to-date information on their shipments could be out in the field, on the factory floor, or in a warehouse. In busy companies, people do not have time to log into a computer application or sift through emails to get to the information they need. It's easier to open an app on your phone and see all imperative information. Apps will bring notifications to your attention, send updates on shipment status, as well as give you the opportunity to approve premium charges, meaning that shipments will not be delayed waiting for this approval. One great mobile app is ALA Touch, which delivers the best features of a TMS in the palm of your hand.
So once the proper negotiated contract rates are in place, the focus needs to shift on making those rates available to the people who need to know them. The best way to do this is via a rating engine. The basics of a freight rating engine is that they match a user's shipping and freight characteristics to a carrier's service level and price options. A comprehensive system is essential to maintaining tight cost controls. The goal in freight audit and payment is to automate processes as much as possible, and freight rating is key to achieving a high level of automation. Using a rating engine with updated contracted rates will ensure that your transportation spend information is valid and current, as well as in a format that is easy to understand to users across your organization. This will also allow you to see real-time costs and transit time of different modes and service levels. They are also beneficial for the sales team to offer quotes, or to buyers and planners to gauge how much transportation will cost, as well as how long it will take for the freight to deliver. Utilization will provide consistency within your company that will ensure that all parties involved are on the same page when it comes to logistics spend and transit times. A rating engine should be user-friendly, comprehensive, and flexible. Simply put in your origin and destination, weight and DIMs of cargo being shipped, as well as the mode required, and what comes back is a list of approved carriers with their charges, accessorial fees, and transit time. Here is an example of a shipment that is originating in Houston, Texas, with a destination in Cincinnati, Ohio. You need it there in 2 business days. Which LTL carrier do you use? With a rating engine, you will not only be able to select the correct carrier that can transport your material in 2 days, but you will also be able to select the least expensive one.
Our third pro tip brings us into the world of auto tender. Using electronic data interchange standards, also known as EDI, shippers and carriers can exchange info electronically, putting an end to the manual practice of calling carriers or sending emails. Let's say there is an LTL shipment that needs to be tendered. If the shipper's preferred carriers are utilizing EDI and the shipper is already set up, the load can be tendered automatically. No call, no email, no fuss. The carrier will simply show up to collect the shipment as scheduled. Most LTL carriers can easily support EDI. Some truckload carriers, particularly more of the mom and pop variety, find it harder to support because of technological barriers. Auto tender is certainly the best way for a shipper to maximize efficiency in the use of the correct carriers. Here's a way that we've utilized auto tender to service our customers. One of our accounts move around 95% of their shipments by LTL. In the course of a single day, a router can manually arrange shipments, which includes rating, tendering, tracking, and pickup and delivery confirmations for each one. With applying auto tender and the automated tracking functionality, the same person could easily double productivity.
In addition to the standard freight rates, accessorials, and surcharges, there are some other costs that drive up your transportation budget. Let's call these hidden costs. Hidden costs show up in various forms, such as freight being lost or damaged, or overcharges by the carrier when they submit their invoice for payment.
Your transportation spend can increase quickly with various hidden charges. It takes a careful and experienced eye to watch out for these small fees that will eventually add up to major costs. First on our list is dealing with damages. As soon as freight is damaged, the headache begins. Not only can it not be delivered, but now has to be sent back to the supplier and repaired or replaced, causing additional shipping charges. This typically means the freight is late and additional fees will be paid to have the new or repaired cargo expedited. Shippers end up eating these costs as a result. The claims process is a tedious and time-sensitive route, making it difficult to make up for the extra charges on the back end. Delays can also add to the cost of transportation. Communication and visibility is critical because there are numerous factors depending on the arrival of the cargo. For example, a company has cargo that needs a crane to offload. If the cargo becomes delayed, there is an additional fee for the equipment and crew to be on site for consecutive days. This leads to paying for these technicians and entire crews to be waiting for the truck to arrive. Repeated delays can lead to a loss of customers' confidence because they no longer believe you are reliable. Even though delays cannot be helped at times, proper planning and forecasting can help you avoid them in the long run. Storage is another area where fees can quickly accumulate. Again, these can be blamed on poor planning. For instance, if you are in charge of getting a shipment door to door internationally, you need to have all the correct documentation in place prior to the shipment moving, or you risk the chance of it ending up in storage. If your freight forwarder moves it to the port and the documentation is not correct, they will hold the cargo in storage until it has cleared customs. Typically, you will receive a few days free in storage, but beyond that, they will begin to charge daily fees, and that can add up quickly. If the proper plan was in place, storage could be avoided, and all shipments could arrive at a scheduled time to move to the site in one truck. Lastly, carriers may inadvertently send multiple invoices for the same move. They may overcharge or double bill, so it's helpful to monitor your freight payments.
The industry recovery rate for claims is 11%, meaning that companies only recover 11% of the amount when they do submit claims. Why isn't 100% recovered? Mainly because claims recovery is a bureaucratic nightmare. Carriers understand this and bank on companies not following through with claims because of the high administrative burden. You are leaving money on the table if you do not follow through with freight claims on damaged cargo. Carriers are required by law to settle cargo claims, and these can lead to partial or full payment of the price of the cargo. Some of the issues with freight claims involve unreported damage or lack of pictures and documentation of the damage. Two of the more common problems are untimely notification of damage by the claimant and an overall lack of understanding of carrier liability and regulations. It is important to have a team with proven results for filing and following up these claims. I'll give you a quick example of how difficult and tricky some claims can be. On a recent shipment from US to Mexico, damage was found when it was delivered to the consulate in Mexico. We filed a claim for damage on behalf of our client, and it was initially denied. Claim recovery in Mexico can be very challenging. In this example, the damage happened somewhere in transit, and the Mexican carrier did not notate that there was damage on the cargo in Laredo, so when it was received, the assumption was that the damage happened somewhere between Laredo and the Mexican destination. But because this shipment was on a through bill of lading, meaning that there was only one bill of lading with the origin, the U.S. city, and the destination, the Mexico city, it was covered under the Carmack Amendment. So regardless of where the damage happened, the U.S. carrier had responsibility of paying the claim when it was received as damaged. Pro tip number 4 directs our focus to the importance of auditing freight invoices. A recent study showed that customers are overcharged between 4 and 6% on average, and that 17% of freight invoices are incorrect. Even with contract rates and robust processes in place, we still see error rates hover over 5%. To sum it up, there are substantial savings to be found by auditing invoices. You don't have to manually audit every invoice as they come in. Creating a match file that compares carrier invoicing against the rates in your system will identify discrepancies for further investigation. This is something that most freight payment companies can and should implement.
Now it's time to review our pro tips. Pro tip 1. Stay on top of current events, world news, and industry news. Pro tip 2. Monitor your volume, spend, and performance on a regular basis using metrics. Pro tip 3. Use AutoTender to award loads to approved service providers. And pro tip 4. Electronically compare freight payment invoices to the rates in your system. All of the aforementioned suggestions are encompassed within the scope of a logistics control tower. As global supply chains become increasingly complex, It is important that processes be put in place to help control cost, maintain compliance, and ensure that operational standards are met. The Logistics Control Tower is one way to effectively manage the movement of goods throughout a supply chain. Starting in the 90s, these were sometimes referred to as fourth-party logistic providers, or 4PLs. But while the term 4PL is ambiguous and a bit confusing, the term control tower perfectly describes the service. Think of an airport's control tower, managing arrivals and departures through one centralized location, making sure all planes and passengers arrive timely and safely. In a similar fashion, the Logistics Control Tower provides a centralized approach to routing, managing, tracking, and measuring performance, with the goal of seeing that all goods arrive timely, cost-effective, and undamaged. Control towers can be internal or external and will provide global standards, visibility, performance improvement, savings, and consistency to any company.
Thank you for joining us today, and if you have any questions or require additional information, you can either call area code 239-489-9900, or you can send an email to sales@allenintel.com. Thank you.
Voila.